Hello, my wonderful physical science students. So we finished our book completely. We finished our um, physical science book, but there are a few standards that we did not go over that would have been on the test. And so we are going to first start with um, life sciences. And life sciences, we're going to talk about briefly photosynthesis and what that is and how we need that to happen in order to survive. And so we are going to watch this video together and then answer some questions about the video, and that will be your assignment for this week. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share the screen with you. I may or may not stop the video as we go through the video. So when I find some valuable or good information that I want to highlight, because it may or may not be an answer to one of your questions, I will stop the video and explain it a little further.
Today we're going to learn about one of life's most important processes, photosynthesis, and we need your help. I'm traveling from my home base in Florida to where photosynthesis is cranking all year long. The tropical rainforests of Costa Rica. It's a ride of life here. Monkeys scramble through the trees. Beautifully colored frogs clamber along the branches. And bats make homes out of leaves. But these amazing animals are here because of what is going on inside the cells of the plants that form the foundation of the ecosystem. I'm an ecologist, and I've traveled to many places around the world to study organisms, both plant and animals, and their interactions. You may not think plants and animals have much in common, but they do. It's a
All right, so ecology is the study of the interactions of animals and their environment and plants and their environment.
process called cellular respiration. Both
All right, so cellular respiration is important. Cellular respiration is what our bodies are able to do with the carbon dioxide, with the oxygen that is produced from the plants. So plants use the carbon dioxide in order to create carbohydrates for their nutrient source, and they will process that carbon dioxide and then give us oxygen, and we use the oxygen for cellular respiration. And plants also do cellular respiration as well. They use those carbohydrates to then power and create their energy that they need to sustain life. So cellular respiration here is the process by which cells use oxygen to produce energy from food.
animal and plant cells use oxygen to break down sugars in cellular respiration. But plants do something that animals can't. They can make their own food using a process called photosynthesis. Here in the rainforest, there's a lot of it going on. So here's how it works. Sunlight energy, water, and carbon dioxide enter the leaf and combine inside an organelle called the chloroplast.
Okay, so this chloroplast is going to take that sunlight energy, the water, and the carbon dioxide and create a carbohydrate. So carbohydrate, carbo is the carbon, hydrate is the oxygen and hydrogen together.
The chloroplast releases oxygen as a waste product and sugars that the plant uses to grow. The food that plants produce is the basis for this entire ecosystem. All around the world, photosynthesis is essential. Phytoplankton in the ocean, cacti in the desert, trees in forests. All of them produce food that supports animal life and release oxygen for them to breathe. But do they all photosynthesize at the same rate? What could make them work faster or slow them down? Before we get to the field work, it's time to develop some hypotheses. I'm in Costa Rica, and meeting up with my friend and plant biologist, Steve Oberbauer, a scientist who got interested in biology in a very unusual way.
What got you interested in the rainforest, and why are you still here?
That's maybe an embarrassing question. When I was a kid, I loved Tarzan movies, and I watched every Tarzan movie. I read Tarzan books. I was enthralled with the idea of tropical forest, and that was in the background of my mind the whole time.
Instead of swinging through the jungles like Tarzan, Steve built a huge tower to investigate how photosynthesis works in the jungle. And today, he's going to show us how to measure.
So can you help us measure photosynthesis?
Yeah, we're all ready with this machine. It's all warmed up, and what we're going to do is measure photosynthesis of different species of trees here in the canopy.
So let's get started.
We're going to clamp this gadget onto different leaves, and it's going to measure how much each leaf is photosynthesizing by measuring the carbon dioxide concentration.
Feet, and the rate it's saying is 7.53 for that leaf.
To do good science, we have to measure more than one leaf.
We're good for this tree. Let's go to the next tree.
And more than one tree. Lots more.
So you think we have enough data from the canopy now?
We finished with this first species here, and the rates look pretty good.
We've got our data from the canopy. Time to descend. So we've got a lot less light down here, even though it's a sunny day. So what do we get?
So the canopy is the top layer of all the trees. And so they measure that layer first, and now they're going to measure the bottom layer. And what that does is that at the top layer, that's where you're receiving the most amount of sunlight. And so that sunlight is available for those plants and for them to be able to photosynthesize more often. So now let's look what happens at the bottom layer.
What are you going to do?
We're going to measure photosynthesis of these understory specialists. This is an understory palm, and we expect that it has much lower photosynthetic rates than the species we measure up in the canopy.
The plants.
Now, why would it have that much lower that much lower carbon dioxide reading? Because they are at the understory, under all the other plants, that carbon dioxide at the top is being processed first with that sunlight availability, and then at the bottom, we're not getting as much sunlight, and therefore the carbon rating should be lower. Let's see.
Down here are different than the plants in the canopy overhead.
Now, I mean, just looking around, there's a lot more big leaves down here than there were up in the canopy. So some people.
So what do you think the big leaves signify? If you notice, the trees at the bottom and the understory have much larger leaves. Why do you think they would need the larger leaves being in the understory rather than the top? At the top, you notice that we had those smaller leaves that they were measuring the carbon dioxide. Why would they have those smaller leaves, and why would the ones at the bottom, at the understory, have larger leaves?
Wow, bigger leaves, they must photosynthesize a lot more.
But do they? That's what we're going to find out. Steve and I measure this and other big understory leaves. Remember, we aren't measuring how much photosynthesis is going on in the whole leaf, just how much is occurring in the chamber we clamp to it. Okay, now that we have enough data, you can test your hypotheses about how rates of photosynthesis differ between leaves in the canopy and those near the forest floor. Photosynthesis happens all over the world. Steve has measured it from the rainforest to the Everglades of Florida to the freezing tundra of the Arctic. To explore other parts of the planet, I'm traveling from the rainforests of Costa Rica to the deserts of Shark Bay, Australia, to have a look at some very different plants. The wildlife here is unusual, to say the least. Some look familiar, others resemble something out of science fiction. But I'm here to look at the plants. This desert only gets about 20 centimeters, around a foot of rain each year. The plants have adapted to these dry conditions in different ways. One of these is to produce a thin, waxy layer that helps them conserve water.
So this waxy layer on the leaves depending on what biome you are in, is going to allow that perspiration doesn't occur from the plant. So you want the plant to be able to conserve as much water. That waxy layer is not going to allow the water to pass through the leaves and be evaporated easily. The trees in this area are going to need more water if they do not receive as much water as they should. And so this is a way to conserve the water that they have.
Another challenge for plants in the desert is that when they open tiny pores in the leaf called stomata to get carbon dioxide, it loses water and might dry out. It's a tough balancing act here in the desert. As I explore this amazing habitat further, you use data from around the world to see how differences in the physical environment, from extreme temperatures to differences in rain and light, affect photosynthesis. Today we learned all about photosynthesis and how processes that occur within cells can be important for building the base of entire ecosystems. Remember, there's so many cool things out there in nature. Until next time, keep on exploring.
All right, so now we're going to answer
Hi.
a couple of questions regarding this video we just watched. I'm going to highlight the questions for you here. And I'm going to post this as well. You only have to do 1 through 8, I believe. All right, so 1 through 5. So you don't have to do 6. So 1 through 5. So number 1 says describe the process, how they relate to each other. So photosynthesis, here's our equation for photosynthesis. And here's the equation for respiration. How should the rate of photosynthesis change if the amount of light reaching a leaf decreases? So if we have the canopy at the top, they're receiving a lot of light. That receiving of light is going to increase their rate of photosynthesis. At the bottom floor, understory, you're not going to get as much photosynthesis. So how should the rate of photosynthesis change if the amount of light reaching the leaf decreases? So I want you to write your answer there. Based on your answers above, how should the rate of photosynthesis in the rainforest vary from the canopy to the forest floor? Why would the amount of photosynthesis be lower in a desert than in a tropical rainforest, even if there is plenty of light? Remember, you need water as well. And if a forest is producing enough oxygen for both the plants and the animals in the forest to use, is there more photosynthesis happening or more respiration happening within these plants? And so this is a really good question, because in Costa Rica, in our tropical rainforest, we have tons of photosynthesis occurring, but all of that oxygen that is being created in that forest is also being absorbed by the animals in that forest by respiration. And so it is a constant cycle, and the photosynthesis and the oxygen created in that cycle is reused by the animals in that area as well. So we do not get the oxygen that is being produced in that tropical rainforest. We do not use that. Other bacteria and algae called diatoms are the ones who create the most, or photosynthesize most, and will create the most oxygen for us. So that's something pretty cool and interesting to know. So answer number 5, and this will all be in an assignment under your week's work. So I hope you learned something in this video, and I am so excited for you guys to learn some stuff about photosynthesis and share with me what you've learned. Bye guys, love you. See you soon next week.